Alright, welcome back to Crabby Dice, where we talk through and rant about crowdfunding campaigns. And as you can see on the screen today, we're going to be looking at Bloodstone from Druid City Games / Skybound Games. I'm not sure why they're using their other account, but it is what it is. So this one is barely a week old. We're almost nearing 300k, which is really healthy. Still 2.5 weeks to go. Alright, so what is Bloodstone? If you don't know what Bloodstone is, it's got two modes. It's either a 1 to 8 player arena battle game. You're all in an arena together, last man standing is going to win, or it's a PvE, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a boss battler. So think Townsfolk Tussle, Aeon's End Trespass, Oathsworn, Kingdom Death Monster, so on and so on. Alright, so you're playing one of the two modes and you're pretty much deciding before you're gonna set it up. Alright, so let's go through the campaign. Oh, give you my usual intro. Obviously I forgot. If you've not seen one of my videos before, 100% my subjective take. I'm going to talk about what I like about the gameplay, the value, and if I helped you out at all, why not consider subscribing to my channel. Alright, so now let's go through the campaign. And obviously, like most projects, we're going to get the contents of the box right away, so let's look at the value first before tackling the gameplay. Alright, so for value, it's a bit of a sticker shock. The base core game is going to be 125 USD, which is a tad on the high side. Games that are around this type, games of this ilk, usually clock in and start at 99 bucks. But we're going to investigate by looking at the contents of the box. The other two pledge levels here are 160 USD and 199. Now, a little caveat to all this. This is just with one expansion thrown in. I'm assuming all of these are going to change by the end of the project. If they add more expansions, you'll probably have either more levels or whatever it is. But it is what it is. So let's look at what you get for 125 bucks. All right, so for 125 bucks, you're going to get the 8 champion boards, the 9 champions, and the pet here. So in total, you're going to get, plus the 28 monsters, you're going to get a 37. Let's add on a handful of extra minis because they're doing this weird daily unlock thing. So let's add about 5 more. So let's say we end up with like 43, 44 minis. Not an impressive amount. I mean, if you compare this to every other minis game at 99 bucks, you're usually getting a lot more in those games. These minis are a tad bigger, still not an impressive scale, just a tad bigger than those other games, but you're still not getting the quality of plastic in the box. Alright, what else are you going to get in the box? You're going to get about 300 cards. I do have to point out though, the art is phenomenal. Let's just give a shout out to Druid City Games and Skybound Games. The artists they have on staff in all their previous projects are just phenomenal. I just love the art that they use. So you're going to get about 300 cards with 300 pieces of art on it. Plus the player boards look really good and really awesome. You do have to note that the sort of framing around each of these player boards are quite different, and that's a nice attention to detail. I really like it. You can get the monster boards with the monster sort of stuff on it. That's pretty good. You can get the monster stuff. Another thing that adds value that I don't want to forget mentioning is that they're going to come pre-washed. So what you see here is just gray minis, but they're going to wash all the minis, and this is something that you normally have to pay like 20, 25, even $30 for. So think Tainted Grail, Storm Sunder, Ether Fields, and stuff like that. So it is a bit of value that you're adding that you're not seeing on the page itself here. You're going to get some monster tokens and a lot of dice. So this is where I think the value or the price of the game really had to go up. It's because you get a ton of dice in this game. Alright, in total you're getting about 75 dice, which is really impressive. You're going to get 18 custom dice here for the heroes, 14 custom dice for the monsters, and about 45 just regular dice, attack and blood energy dice, and 5 bloodstone dice. So you're getting, you know, 6, 7, 8 times more dice, in this game than you would in other battle type games. Alright, so that's where some of the costs are going to. You're going to get a player board, you're going to get a bunch of poker chips and a bunch of arena components and game trays and so on and so on. So when you look at the full product, you know, 2 trays of dice, 42, 43, whatever minis, some poker chips, I mean, 125 seems like a lot, but it's not so bad. It, you know, I would have clocked it in at like 110, 115. Another thing that I did want to mention is they could have saved, honestly, some of the costs by lowering the amount of the generic dice. They pretty much put all the components in the game so that you can play 8 players and you don't have to share dice. Honestly, that's way overkill. I mean, they could have made this much cheaper by making it a 4 to 5 player game that you don't have to share dice. And then if you want to play more players, then you share dice, or even offer dice packs as an add-on that they can charge more for, or an expansion for like a 5 to 6 player expansion. So it's almost like the Caverna problem, where you're paying $100+ for a game, which includes the cardboard for 7 players, but you're never going to play more than 3 or 4 players. So you're just wasting money on the cardboard, you know, that sort of thing. But that's a little mini rant that we'll leave on the side there. So, you know, those are my thoughts on the base value of the game. It's high, but not so high. The other thing we really need to talk about just for value is the prices that they're gonna put these expansions at, because in my opinion, it's extortion. This is really expensive. I don't know what they were thinking. You're gonna literally get 1 mini, 25 cards, 6 tokens, and a rulebook for $20. Let's look at it here. $20. I mean, somebody do the research right down below. Find me another example in any other product that charged this much for an expansion that has only 1 mini. You know, I was just looking at the Super Fantasy Brawl because I'm trying to get on the secondary market, and I went to the page yesterday, and the Force of Nature box, which was $5 less than the Bloodstone expansion, you got 3 minis, and these are chunky, huge minis, the same amount of cards, so 3 times the amount of minis, the same amount of cards with better artwork probably, for $5 less than the Bloodstone. Like, come on, like, guys, Druid City Games, you know, you got to look at what your competition is offering you, and you got to adjust your prices. Just $20 for that expansion is ridiculous. All right, but it is what it is. So there's some good, some bad. Overall, it is just a really expensive product. So if you are still interested in this game, my suggestion to you is you really have 2 options. You're either getting just the core game, and hopefully they'll unlock some extra stuff that'll increase the value there, so you're paying $125 plus shipping. I do have to note that the shipping to this one is a tad on the high side. They're estimating between $30 and $45, which is high for 1 box. You know, I'm paying less than $30 for CMON products, which is like 2-3 boxes, Awakened Realms and all that stuff. So, you know, this is a bit on the high side, but it is what it is. Or, you know, that's one option. The other option I would tell you is that if you really want that expansion for that 1 mini, I would get just the base pledge with the expansion, so it's going to be $145 in total. The reason I would suggest not to get ever the champion pledge, this would be a big no-no, is because you're going to end up paying $15 for a novel, because 125 plus 20 is 145, 160, that's $15 difference for a novel. You do not want to pay $15 for a novel. You're not going to read it. Nobody's going to want it on the secondary market. You can probably pick it up on the secondary market for $5, or even pick it up on Amazon for $10 or anything. So do not get the champion pledge. And if you really want everything at $199, I mean, you can piecemeal everything in this page here separately, and what you save in cost is basically the price of the novel. So you're not really saving that much money. And so overall, they're trying to get to that premium market, I'm assuming. That's why everything's a bit more overpriced. I mean, it's not extortion overall, the product. I'm not going to put it on my end of year 5 worst deals of the year, but overall, it's a bit high. Now, let's take 2 seconds here and pivot and just talk about long-term value. All right, because I think it's important to note that for Druid City Games and Skybound Games, unfortunately for them, none of their previous projects have held value. You can pretty much pick up any games that they've released either at cost of the Kickstarter or even much less. So we're talking about the Sorcerer City, Tidal Blades, Valor and Villainy, the 3 Little Pigs game, I keep forgetting the name of that game, so on and so on. Just look at their repertoire, go look on BGG, go find it on the secondary market. It is what it is. But I just thought it was important that for me to mention that, but they haven't released a big minis game like this yet, and these type of games tend to hold their value much more than Euro games and all that stuff, so hopefully this one will hold its value. So now let's talk about gameplay. Alright, actually, even before talking about the gameplay, there is something that is technically a red flag for me that I normally always notice when looking at these type of games. Every time a game offers multiple modes where they're saying you can play this or you can play that, usually that's a red flag for me. I don't like it. You know, I want a company to offer me their best product, and if you want to add on a different mode, add on an expansion on the side, you know, sort of the same thing like Nova, Aetus, Renaissance. They had the core system, and then they had a dungeon crawl expansion on the side. You know, if they would have bundled that all together, I would have seen it as a problem. All right, but it is something that you can get on the side that I didn't even add to my my campaign. You know, I'm the same thing as Z Garcia with the Dice Tower. Every time they cover a game and there's a game with multiple modes, you know, a game that has a trader mechanic, or you can play all together, or you can play this way or that way, it drives us bananas. I want the company to offer me their best one game. All right, stop trying to give me variety of multi-modes, but that's just something that is a red flag for me. It might not be for you, but it's food for thought. Okay, now let's talk about the gameplay. So because it's 2 game modes, we're going to tackle both of them, and obviously some of the critiques that I have will be for both, but let's tackle PvP first. All right, the arena game. Now, my big issue with the arena game, unfortunately, I'm going to be like a negative Nancy with this video. I don't know why. I'm going to gain that reputation. But the big issue I have with the PvP game is that the game is just boils down to a miniatures version of Munchkin. Alright, that sentence is either going to make you love this game or it's going to make you run to the hills. And you're not going to ever play the PvP game, because essentially that's what it is. It's a PvP game that has... You have no motivation to attack one person over another person besides what his breath might smell like. Like it's one of those type of games. You're just assuming who's in first, attacking a random person, doing this, doing that. That's either gonna work really well for your group or not, and that's really important for you to understand. All right, for me already, that mode, it's a no-go. I'm never gonna play that mode. Munchkin sucks. We hate all games that have that type of kingmaker type of thing. We call it the kingmaker problem. And it's just that. It's just king making the kingmaker game, and it is what it is. All right. I do have to say, every other PvP game that's come out in the last 20 years has solved this problem with the simplest solution ever. You make it a team versus team game. I mean, Arena the Contest, Super Fantasy Brawl. You just do team versus team. It solves this problem. I don't know why you would do a free-for-all arena game. It just doesn't work. I mean, how easy would it have been? 8-player game, you take 4 heroes against 4 heroes, you already know who you're going to attack, you just pick somebody on the other team to attack, and you do your attack. Done. I just solved your problem. Maybe it's a mode they're going to add or a variant, but it is what it is. Alright, that's my major issue with the PvP. I mean, another issue I have with the PvP is sort of the lack of customization. But there's literally like no customization you're going to be doing to your characters in either mode. Alright, like your character, once you pick him, it's going to come with his dice, and that's it. There's no abilities you're going to be even unlocking as you play. There's no items or scrolls you're going to be equipping. No upgrade system or anything. It is what it is, and it's pretty much set in stone. It sort of reminds me of Dice Throne, but even Dice Throne, it's like a 20-minute game and not a super long 1-hour game plus like this one is. Alright, so that one's a more basic game. Alright, so I would have preferred a customization thing. Even most other PvP games that don't have customization, there is more strategy, because part of the strategy is which characters you're going to take to the battle and the way they interact with each other. So think Mythic Battles Pantheon and stuff like that, where, you know, you might not equip your items and unlock special abilities, but, you know, part of the fun is like, I'm going to take this character, work with this character and get this team going and see if they can drive and work together to beat the opponent, right? There's none of that going on here. You're going to take one character and he's set in stone. Alright, other things that sort of bother me about both modes of play is just the simplicity of the combat. I mean, this is really a game where it's just pure dice chucking with no mitigation. I just mentioned Dice Throne, and Dice Throne is a dice chucking game, but there's a ton of mitigation in that game. You're going to be doing a Yahtzee mechanic. You get to choose your dice. There's even systems in there to change the faces of your dice, so on and so on. This game has none of that. You are literally going to do between 6 and like 100 damage on your turn, and it's completely random. There's literally no strategy, and that again is just like I mentioned before, something that's going to work for your group, or it's not. A lot of other reviewers mentioned this too. It's just you're at the whims of the dice. Alright? And that works for beginners, but people who have been in the hobby a while, I don't think it's going to work very well. Alright, and when you switch over to the PvE, there's a new bucket of problems. Alright, first of all, you know, the reasons why a PvE boss battling game is awesome is because of the evolution and the progression of the characters that you're controlling over the campaign. Alright, there's not much of that going on in this game. if you're gonna beat a boss, you might change one card in your deck, and that card won't make that much of a difference. You're not gonna be upgrading your items. You're not gonna be getting scrolls and stuff, and weapons, and getting better dice, and doing this and doing that. It is really minimal what you're going to be upgrading as you play. So your first game and your 100th battle will be very similar, whether you fight monster A versus B versus C. I'm going to say the one thing that is impressive is hopefully the variety of monsters. You do get a ton. You get 28. I know in a lot of boss battler games you don't get that much variety, especially at this price point. So hopefully these enemies will be interesting and vary up the gameplay quite a bit. So that is a good thing. I do like that. But if you take out that whole progressive evolution of your character out of a boss battler, that's a gigantic misstep in my mind. And that's where it's gonna fall flat, I think. And it really needs to up its game in that aspect to compete with the other boss battlers. All right, so I've been talking way too long. I think that's it. Let me know below if you are interested in this game, if you're gonna back it, what your thoughts are. Thumbs up, thumbs down, do whatever you want. We'll see you in the next one. Later.